Rolando Ramirez. I am the Realty Director for Portobello Living. We are a team here in Miami, primarily focused on development and then also just helping, conventional buyers and sellers. But foundationally, we started off as a fix and flip company. My partner, who is a developer, Ivan, started developing with his father and noticed that he was getting a lot of leads from the listings he was putting out, but he didn't have the time to, work the leads or convert any of the deals from the leads that were coming in because he was solely focused on his fix and flip slash development business. So he brought on a partner, which was me, to basically take over on the realty side. And in that first full year with him, I started in October of 2016. In 2017, I closed 21 deals in that first full year with him. Now, that's not really to say anything about me being special or impressive. It's to impress upon you that I adopted a system and a way of working with regards to lead generation that worked. And I want to share it with you guys today. So I'm super excited to do that. I've now been in the business for about 10 years. That's still a little hard for me to come to terms with. Karen, I think you and I had this conversation a few weeks back. I got licensed in November of 2015. So, first, I want to get a feel for the room before we start the class. So, if I could just maybe have you guys write in the chat, how long have you been in real estate? How long have you been licensed? Um, or you could share how long you've been full time. I mean, I got licensed in 2015, but I didn't really start full time until October of 2016. So we got 10 plus. Wow. Okay. Awesome. So we've definitely got some veterans here since 2016, licensed in '06. Wow. Okay. Cool. Cool. So we got some veterans in here. You guys will be able to chime in. We got somebody from 2025. So great. You got into the market at a very, very good time. Why? Because the market right now has a lot of challenges, and those challenges can be opportunities for you to improve on your skills so that when the market gets a little bit uh, more active per se, you will be prepared and you will be able to dominate. So let's go ahead and start. I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint here. Give me 1 second. Make sure I can set this up. Um, oh, sorry. Bear with me, guys. Just want to make sure I get this correct. And then let's hit presenter. Okay, perfect. Can you guys see just a slide that says lead generation? That's all
Yes.
you guys see. Perfect. All right, cool. So, lead generation, let's get straight into it. Before we do, it is important to remind you all of the antitrust policy that Miami Association of Realtors has. If you guys would like to have more information about the antitrust policy, please just scan the QR code there to get informed and make sure that we are abiding by the antitrust policy. So, there will be no conversations here about trade secrets, commission percentages, industry standard conversions, anything like that. But there will be plenty of content and resources for you guys to go off of. So let's go ahead and get into it. So our agenda today has 5 sections. We're going to talk first about why lead generation is important. That should be a very short conversation. Two, we're going to go into generating leads. Three, we're going to talk about playing the numbers game. So we're going to talk about numbers and the numbers that you need to track and be aware of. Four is your mindset. And that's a very, very important thing. I got to tell you guys, 90% of your success is determined, in my perspective, by your mindset. You will either psych yourself in or out of the business in most cases. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then we will wrap up with one of my favorite subjects. And I got to say, a key to the success other than the mindset is the focus that you bring and how you manage your time on a day-to-day basis. So let's go ahead and get into it. Okay, so why is lead generation important? There's some general answers here, right? Well, we want to generate more leads, right? We want to increase sales opportunities. We want to build relationships with prospects, and we want to boost revenue growth. Why is lead generation important to you guys? I'm not sure. Kevin, can they unmute or do they just need to go into the chat?
Whatever you prefer, ma'am.
Okay, cool. So if you guys would like to unmute, feel free to unmute and just jump in and share with me why you think lead generation is important.
The foundation of our business.
It is the foundation of our business. That is absolutely right, Fernando. Thank you very much. Any other input? Karen, I
Philip
saw you
wrote,
unmuted yourself.
Philip wrote on the chat. Like,
Philip wrote in the chat. Okay, I am for some reason not seeing the chat. Um, so if somebody can just help me out with if anyone jumps into the chat. What did the Philip say, Karen? I lost you for a
Said
second.
the
lifeblood
life
of our business.
It's the lifeblood of our business. It absolutely is. Okay, cool. So I think we can understand it, right? Like, let me ask you guys a question to put this into perspective. If you had the absolutely perfect listing presentation or the absolute perfect buyer consultation, right? It was flawless and you knew it from beginning to end. You knew all the objections and everything, but you were not prospecting for business. Is it realistic to assume that you will survive? No, right? See people nodding no. Absolutely not, right? So let me share with you guys a story when I first got into the business about an example of this. So I was in orientation with another one of my, colleagues in a class where they were kind of training us on the basics of real estate. And they were telling us in the class, like, hey guys, have 10 conversations a day. Like that's your one thing right now. Just have 10 conversations a day. And the colleague kind of overthought this whole thing and he was like, man, I just don't want to have conversations because I don't have a listing presentation yet. So I need to work on my listing presentation. I need to get this ready. Oh, I need to really memorize these scripts before I actually make the calls. Well, he is not in the business anymore, to kind of just get to the point. And he got out of the business very quickly because he realized that he was so focused on trying to make something quote unquote perfect, which newsflash, guys, nothing will ever be perfect and things are always changing. Um, he spent so much time trying to perfect the thing instead of actually just getting into action and making the calls and throwing himself out there that he ended up running out of finances and had to go get a job, right? So from day one, as a real estate agent, you need to be prospecting. You need to be letting people know that you are an agent and that you can help them with their real estate needs, right? Because the limiting beliefs that pop up, right? One of the classic ones is, oh, I don't know enough yet. I haven't done a deal, right? So there's ways that we can get over that. We'll get more into the mindset part of it, but lead generation is the foundation of your business. Another analogy or story or analogy that I'll give you guys is in the book The Millionaire Real Estate Agent by Gary Keller, which is again a foundational book for you to grow your real estate business. Gary talks about a research study where they got two different groups and they told one group that both groups were basically in charge of creating pots. But one group was going to be graded and scored based on how nice of a pot they made, and the other group was going to be scored by how many pots they made, right? So one was graded on quantity, the other one was graded on quality. What do you guys think ended up happening? Who do you think ended up making the better pots?
Ones that were focused on quantity.
Correct, Dror. Thank you very much. And what made you realize that that was the answer?
Because when you're not focused on the result and you're not stressing, things just happen naturally. And the more you practice something, the better you are. La práctica hace el maestro.
Yes, sir. So what Dror just said in Spanish is the practice makes the master, right? The practice makes the master. I want you guys to write this down wherever you're taking notes and just put it in all caps and stick it onto the wall that you look at every single day when you get into your office. Time on the task over time. Time on the task over time. That is the secret to success. I actually saw a really, really good post. This guy, Kevin Hart, if you guys know Kevin Hart, he's a very, very famous comedian. He was interviewed on a podcast, and I saw this quote on Instagram, and I had to share it on my story. But it's essentially what the point I'm making is about. He says, basically, the way to succeed is you just have to be willing to outlast everybody else. So you have to see your business as what Simon Sinek calls in another book, as an infinite game. In other words, you're not necessarily attached to the end, you're not necessarily attached to the outcome, you're attached to your standards. And you're attached to what you need to be doing on a day-to-day basis to be able to have success. So that is why lead generation is important. It is the foundation of your business, and you need to be focused on just being consistent with it, not necessarily being perfect or having everything figured out. Okay? If you guys got a call, let me put it to you guys like this. For those of you that might think differently, like, oh no, I need to have the listing presentation. If you got a call today from a seller that said, hey, Kevin, I need to meet with you tomorrow at 3 to list my house. Are you going to say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't? No, right? You're going to figure out a way. You're going to call your broker, you're going to call a buddy, you're going to call somebody, or you're going to do your bunch of research and you're going to show up and you're going to give it a shot, right? So that's the same approach that we need to be taking here with the lead generation. So I think that point has been well made at this point. Let's see. Someone in the chat. Lifeblood of our business. Yes. Okay, cool. So moving on to the next slide. Okay, so generating leads. So in generating leads, there's two ways to generate leads. There's prospecting and then there's marketing, right? So prospecting is proactive and direct. Marketing is proactive and indirect. So could you guys give me an example? Maybe let's get 3 examples of what prospecting would be considered. So what would be some lead generation forms that would be considered prospecting and not marketing?
Cold calling would be prospecting.
Cold calling who, Marlene?
I'm sorry?
I said cold calling who?
Expired listings.
Okay, so calling expireds, that's a proactive, a prospecting. Cold calling in general, yes, but let's try to get some specifics here. Who else? Thank you, Marlene.
Door knocking.
Door knocking, yes. Good job, Philip. One more.
Not that I like it, but
Yeah. Right.
Going out to local events be a way of prospecting in your
Yes,
community?
Kayan. Absolutely. Going to events, right? Going to events is a way of prospecting. However, it's only a way of prospecting if you're actually being intentional at the event of promoting yourself
Yes.
as an agent. Because if
Yes,
I'm
sir.
just going to show up to the event and I'm just going to stand there and kind of wait for people to come to me, that's not really being proactive, right? We're not really being proactive. We're just there, right? So we need to be very intentional when we go to events, or even doing things like an open house, right? Like if you're just kind of scheduling the open house and printing flyers and just showing up, you're not really being proactive with making the most out of that open house. So good job. All right, guys, what would be considered marketing? What would be some lead generation that we would do through marketing?
Creating ads on social media?
Running ads on social media. Thank you, Kayan. Give me a couple more.
Direct mail.
Direct mail. Thank you, Chelsea, and welcome. Happy to see you. So we got direct mail, running social media ads. What else?
Sending emails with last sold in your area or CMAs.
Email blasts is another one. Great job. Thank you, Dror. All right. So we've got some methods there. You guys understand the difference, right? One is like you are being proactively reaching out to people, right? You're calling them, you're door knocking, you're getting in front of them, right? It's one of those 3. It's either a direct phone call, a face-to-face conversation in some capacity, right? It's one of those things that you're doing. It could be, I would say, like if you're, let's say, going to be sponsoring an event, let's say we're sponsoring an event as a real estate agent, that may be more so marketing, right? You're still showing up and you're still talking to people, but essentially people are reaching out because you showed up there and promoted, the business. So that's the difference. Now, in the beginning, right, when you're starting out as an agent, a lot of the times you don't really have capital to be spending on marketing. So what do you need to do? Probably go and hit the phones or do something proactive, because you're going to be trading one of two resources or a combination of both to get business: time or money, or both, right? So in prospecting, it's usually a lot more time based than money. Marketing is usually more money based than time. Next point I want to make here is focus on 3 to 5 sources. We can probably come up with like 30 ways to lead generate, right? But you really want to focus on and master no more than 3 to 5 and do those consistently, right? So as a new agent, we hear about all these sexy and shiny objects or companies that what we can pay and they'll give us leads, or we get blown up by telemarketers. I know I do. I'm sure you guys do too. Offering you seller leads, offering you buyer leads, all that's junk, right? And I don't want to call it junk. Maybe there's some good reputable companies out there. But the key is you want to stick to no more than 3 to 5 sources and really focus on those. So another trap that new agents fall into is they want to learn about everything, right? So you go to every single class, you go to every single thing, and it's like, let's say you're focused on building a luxury brand and becoming a luxury agent. And then it's like you're going to classes about, prospecting, I don't know, expires, and it's not really like something luxury based, or maybe the other way around, like you're going into expires and then you're going to a class about luxury. Like, you have to understand that your time is your most valuable resource, and how you're using your time on a daily basis is going to create your results. So you need to be putting all of your time, or as much of your time, into money making activities. And just because you're learning doesn't mean necessarily that you're going to be earning, right? You don't want to fall into the trap of becoming what I call a professional student, where you're just going to classes and justifying going to classes because you're avoiding the real work, which is going out, making the calls, knocking on doors, and getting uncomfortable having those conversations, right? I know that stunk for some people, but it's reality, guys. We're in a tough market right now. And if you don't hear these things and you don't get to work on generating those leads, you will be out of the business. And somebody who's hungry and who's willing to take those chances is going to take your spot, right? So we need to be locked into that mindset of, hey, every single day I'm unemployed and I need to be looking for that next opportunity. So next thing, set up a database and feed it. Okay. So it's not just about getting the lead, right? We generated the lead. Now it's about staying top of mind with that lead until the need shows up, right? So let me explain to you guys what I mean. All of you guys who are already a little bit more experienced, what percent of the leads that you get, let's say that you call or they call in, are ready in that first phone call to make an offer on a property or to put a sign in their yard and sell their property? Put some numbers in the chat. Let me see what some people come up with. None, Massimo. Okay. Karen, 20%. Okay. 16%. Wow, Fernando, very specific for a guy who's been in the business for less than a year. That's a very specific number, man. So it sounds like you're tracking 10%, 3%. So you guys get the point. I was going to say it's got to be 20% or less. Like, to me, I think it's like less than 10%, probably 5%, maybe 3%, right? Like, out of all the 100 leads that we're going to close, maybe 3 of them are actually ready, right? Kyan's like, yeah, that part. So it's true, right? Like, it's not just about having that good first conversation. Now it's about, okay, based on their timeline, based on how soon they told me they're going to be ready, or what is the obstacle to get them to get ready, I need to now set up a strategy to stay top of mind and follow up with them, right? Because if you just have that good conversation and then believe, oh yeah, okay, cool, well, we've had a good conversation, so now when they're ready, they're going to call me again, you will be out of the business, right? There's a lot of people out there with real estate licenses, guys. And we also need to get past that mindset of believing that, oh, this person probably knows 5 realtors. They're never going to work with me. Not true. As long as you do a good job of staying top of mind when the need shows up, they will call you. Research shows that majority, I think 80+% of all buyers and sellers work with the first realtor that they interview, that they speak to. But I'll tell you how I've overcome that, because I've had plenty of buyers and sellers tell me at the closing table, I was working with another realtor, or I was going to hire another realtor before I worked with you. What I did was I stayed top of mind. It's a psychology, guys. So think of this, right? The human mind can only keep up to 3 different like brands for every certain thing. So, for example, go ahead right now and you have 10 seconds, name 5 brands of toothpaste. Okay, so in 10 seconds, I got 3 from the entire class of 37 people. So what does this tell us, guys? There's a bunch of toothpaste brands, right? And yet the ones that have been doing the best job of maybe making the funniest commercials or the best ads or the best marketing or staying top of mind are the ones that are earning your business, are the ones that when you have the need, right, you're like, oh, I should go get Colgate or I should go get Sensodyne, right? They've something that they have done to establish that dominance in your brain. That's the same psychology that now you need to bring into your business as a realtor. Because in reality, guys, think about it. Like in the real estate space between real estate agents, the consumer doesn't really understand what is the main difference between one agent or the other. One of the biggest things I've seen them weigh is just like, how much have you sold in my area? But really, it comes down foundationally to the most part for most people, just about the relationship. Like, hey, do I like you? Can I trust you? Can I assume that you know what you're doing? Right? And so you need to be in your follow-up conversations, in your email newsletters, maybe in your automated texts and your automated emails, show that credibility. Show them that not only you know what you're doing, but that you're a professional, right? Like, hey, Kayan, you told me you had a need, right? Last time we spoke, you said this. How's that going? Oh, your credit is challenged. Do you need a credit repair specialist? Oh, yes, you can buy a house with, less than 20% down, even though it's not your first property purchase. Here's how you can do that, right? So you have the answers. If you don't have the answers, you get the answers and you come back. But you build that credibility, you establish the rapport, and you build a relationship until the time comes for them to raise their hand and say, okay, I'm ready. Let's go ahead and list my property. Or, okay, I'm fully approved. Let's go out and look at houses, right? So set up a database and feed it. Some of the things that I have found to be the most effective in setting up a database and feeding it systematically is a call every quarter to every single person in your database. Now, that conversation can be different for different people in your database, right? If it's a friend of yours, right? Let's say it's a friend who you've done business with or you've built a bond with, it could just be a, hey man, how's it going? I saw on Facebook this, right? Like, how's life? What's this? What's that? Or, hey, let's go hang out. Let's go have dinner, right? Something like that. Maybe if it's a lead in your database that hasn't yet bought, maybe they got cold feet, but you're still keeping the relationship. You could tell them like, hey, I have a really good mortgage program right now. They're giving $15,000 in closing cost assistance. Who do you know that might want to buy? Maybe that reactivates them, but now it also conditions them to think of you for referrals. If it's a homeowner in your database, maybe the conversation is something like, hey, Cayenne, summer's coming up, hurricane season is coming up. Do you need any handyman, roofers, electricians, anything like that for your property right now? So it's always trying to come from value or contribution or just showing them that you care about them, right? So in those quarterly calls, it's those kind of things. Now, when I say feed it, I don't just mean putting contacts in the database. I mean feeding your contact notes and keeping track of all the activity that you are doing to cultivate that contact. Why? Because you need to know at some point when is the time maybe to cut the bait, right? Like, so on our team, we have a standard where it's like, if we've followed up with you, let's say 3 times consecutive, and all 3 of those times you have not answered back, So let's say I called you this week, you don't answer, and then I text you, you don't answer. Then the next week I call and text you again, you don't answer. And then the next week I call and text you again, you don't answer. Then we're gonna put you just on an automated text, getting every week. You're gonna get an automated text every week. So I've leveraged myself out of having to do it manually, but I'm still staying top of mind. And then when it's time to call you again in the quarter, I'm going to see, like, have you reacted to any of these texts? Have you answered anything from me? Of course, we have live notifications on the CRM if somebody responds in real time. But at some point, I realize, okay, this person doesn't want a relationship with me. They're not interested. They're not engaged in the last 20 touches that I've done to them. Maybe I don't need to be proactively calling this person. I could leave them in my database if I want to just kind of keep them on an email nurture, but research has shown that typically if they haven't responded or followed up after like 3 touches and a bunch of automations, that they're probably never going to transact. So you want to keep that in mind. And of course, everyone has their own standards, right? Like I had a mentor one time, his standard was you don't stop following up with them until they tell you to stop following up, they've hired another realtor, or they've died. Like that was his thing. And I was like, okay, well, that's cool, but if I'm trying to really like talk to more people and go deep on those people, I can't keep spending time with somebody that has not answered 20 touches of mine, right? Like there's got to be a point where I have to get the message without getting the direct answer. So the 4 quarterly calls is critical. We have a system called the DTD2 system. Basically, what we do is we tag. So there's 26 letters in an alphabet, right? We tag the people's people based on their last names, and we use 2 letters for every tag, right? So let's say one is A and W, the other one's B and E, the other one's D and O, right? Just group them in letters of 2. And you can look up DTD2 system online. I'm sure you'll find it. But basically what we do is like, so one week we're calling everyone with the last name that starts with an A or a W. Then the next week is everyone that starts with a B or an E, right? So if you think about it, there's 13 weeks in a quarter, there's 26 letters in alphabet. That means that everyone's going to get called by me, right? Once a quarter. So that's how the system works. And we found it to be very effective. You also want to have a mix of emails, right? Your CRM can have automated things if you have a marketing team, or if you have the time to do, email newsletters. Those are good too. I send out, like, for example, a quarterly market analysis where I pull numbers of market data and I, write up an analysis and send it out to my database. We do events. We do at least one happy hour every quarter. We invite pretty much everyone that's considered a Met in our database, meaning like if we call them, they know who we are. That's how we define a Met. We do pop buys, right? Like I said, hey, if I'm in Kayan's neighborhood and he's a past client of mine, I might call Kayan and say, hey, Kayan, are you home? I just got out of an appointment. I just wanted to come say what's up, right? So it all just depends again on like the relationship that I have with the person. So we have also like different categories of how much of a Met you are, right? We have Bs, which Bs are basically like the basic level. If we call them, they know who we are. Then we have A's. A's are considered past clients, right? Or somebody who consistently refers us one piece of business a year. And then we have our A pluses. These is people that we've done repeat business with, or they give us at least 2 referrals a year. My mom, for example, is an A plus. She is like one of my biggest marketers. She's always sending me business. I love my mom. That's how we categorize them. And obviously for different people at different levels, right? We'll do events or things for A pluses. We'll do events maybe for A's, and then we'll do events for everyone. So that's kind of how we stay systematic with it. But trust me, guys, when I tell you, the fortune is in the follow-up. It is in the follow-up. And you have to trust the universe's timing. I got to tell you guys, I literally just had this experience yesterday. And it was the perfect timing to bring it to this class. I had a lead in my database that I had contacted 2 previous times since September of last year. September, they didn't answer me. I called and texted. October, I called him again. He picked up the phone. He was kind of like busy. And then he just hung up. And I was like, okay. And then yesterday I was making my calls and this person showed up again. And I saw the notes and I was like, ugh, all right, whatever. I'm going to call this person, see if anything comes of it. And I'll just put him on a text and, let's see if anything comes of this, right? I make the call and the guy just happened to be on that day. He tells me, we had a whole conversation about it. Actually, let me take a step back. In October, I had set him up on the automated texts. And so I called him yesterday. He was like, oh, you're the guy that's been sending me these text messages, checking in with me, right? And I'm like, oh yeah, that's me. He's like, man, I'll tell you, I've been trying to buy for a house for a while now. I haven't been able to have anyone help me. Like I've met with a couple of lenders up until now. I've met with a couple of realtors, but we haven't been able to do anything. I asked him a couple of questions, and it basically turned out that he was going to meet with a lender that day. Like he had requested off yesterday, the exact day that I called him to meet with a lender and talk about getting pre-approved to start buying a house. So guess what we did? We set up a buyer consultation that same evening, yesterday evening. He came in. This guy was hot, motivated, boom, signed a buyer consultation. And now we're working on getting him pre-approved. But it goes to show you guys the concept that I'm trying to get across to you is keep following up. Keep following up. Don't just give up because they haven't answered you, right? Just because someone hasn't answered you doesn't mean necessarily that it's a no. It could just be that they're busy, right? It could just be that they have other things going on. It could be maybe that you haven't built enough rapport with them yet. So, like, I'll tell you in that case, the automated text messages did the heavy lifting for me because he had seen the messages coming in. So that was what allowed him to open up with me in that phone conversation because now he felt like he had some sort of a relationship with me, right? So that's why those things are helpful. Very, very helpful to have automated stuff as well to leverage you. So any thoughts or comments or questions about anything I've said so far? If so, feel free to drop it in the chat. Have they unsubscribed? Karen, actually, believe it or not, a lot of them have not. But the ones that do, I just erase them from my database because if they tell me to stop contacting them, then I don't need to call them anymore, right? If I've asked them about real estate and told me to stop via an automated text, then, that's it. What do you use for automated messages? Good question, Cayenne. So I'm with Keller Williams. So Keller Williams has a CRM called Command that we use. Now, I personally had to design my follow-up texts. I created them in Spanish and in English, and I created some that would go out weekly, and I would create some that go out monthly. But I know that there's CRMs out there that have some of these things already pre-made, and if not, leverage ChatGPT. If I would have had ChatGPT or AI when I was creating these, I would have saved myself weeks of having to think and come up with this stuff. Like you can pretty much tell ChatGPT like, hey, create a 12-week weekly text plan for me. And it'll give you like week 1, week 2, week 3, and then you just edit it, right? You just edit it, you put it in, you create the plan into your CRM, and boom, you're rocking and rolling. Are you using AI assistants to make calls? No, I am not using AI assistants. I personally am not a fan of the AI dialers yet. There also could be some potential. I mean, I think the AI companies that are doing it are pretty good about scrubbing lists for DNCs. I'm not entirely sold yet on the AI assistants, and I'm also not a fan of using ISAs from other countries, unless maybe it's like Spanish speakers, depending on the neighborhood. But the people that we have dialing are myself and the agents on our team. So, it's the people that they're talking to are the people that they'll see face to face when they meet.
So I've had
If it,
calls that I couldn't tell if this was like a real person or not.
oh yeah,
So
they're
I
getting
mean,
good.
maybe for those, I'm asking because let's say you have this list that you have to
Hmm.
get through, and unfortunately, due to timing, you, the person, can't get to these calls. Um, do you use, or I mean, now you're telling me you don't, but I have received calls from people, and I'm like, wait, is this like a real person? And they answer me based on what I answer. They respond to me, and I'm like, am I speaking to an AI? But if I didn't know, it's like if I was speaking to a person.
Yeah, no, I listen. I will tell you, they are pretty legit. I mean, people think that the automated text messages are me actually texting them, right? So like, but the AI voices are pretty impressive. Um, it's definitely something I want to explore further, but I haven't really dove into it yet. I have tried using an ISA from a virtual ISA before, but it did not really yield me results. And that could have been more so because of the individual ISA or maybe the way that I set them up, but it's not something that I do to just kind of answer your question straightforwardly. Okay. Is this recorded? Okay, yes, I believe it is being recorded, I hope, Kevin. Um, you got to ask Kevin about that, Christina. All right, cool. So moving on, playing the numbers game. So the other thing that you have to understand about lead generation, guys, is you're going to get a lot of no's. You're going to get rejected a lot. There's going to be people that will tell you yes and then don't end up transacting, right? Or they end up going in a different direction with something. As long as you understand that this is a game of numbers and you track your numbers and you know your conversions, you will keep yourself from getting psyched out by rejection. Okay? And it'll help you realize where your weak points are. So, as a basic set of key performance indicators or KPIs, this is what I would recommend you to track. One is conversations. So how do we define a conversation on our team? It is a two-way real estate conversation with a decision maker, okay, about real estate, right? It's a real estate conversation with a decision maker about real estate. I guess a two-way conversation with a decision maker about real estate. And it's like, I'm not counting, let's say me and Marlene have a conversation and Marlene's like, oh yeah, I'm definitely interested in buying. Call me next week. That first conversation that we're having is a conversation, but the follow-up conversation I'm having with her is not a conversation because I'm following up from the original conversation that we had. Now, if Marlene's a past client of mine and I'm just calling her to check in and ask her for a referral, that's a conversation because I'm asking for new business. I'm not following up on a business opportunity that's already been given or, it's one that we're already working on. So it's new conversations about business, right? You're either asking for an appointment or you're asking for a referral. That's how you define a conversation. If I call Marlene's house and her son, who's 6 years old, answers the phone and he's like, my mommy's not available, that's not a conversation because he's not a decision maker, right? If I call and they say wrong number, not a conversation, right? So we have to be very clear on that. Another thing that we've hashed out on our team, because this was a question that we had before, is like, hey, what if I call somebody and I start the pitch? I say, hey, this is Rolando with Portobello Living. I'm a realtor in your area. The reason I was calling, and they hang up. Before we were counting that as a conversation, but after we discussed it, we were like, no, that's not a conversation. Because even though we pitched them, we didn't really get any answer from them. They just hung up. So we don't really know if they even heard us. So how can we count that as a conversation? So that's some clarification for you guys on defining what is in a conversation. Second is appointment set, right? So this is an appointment being set with a buyer, a qualified buyer or seller. Some teams define this differently. I honestly just count all appointments set because we're now also not like in the lead generation business of, like, for example, seller previews. So, that's not something that we generally do. When we meet with people, it's genuinely to talk about helping them buy or sell right now. So an appointment set is pretty much setting an appointment, right? You got something on your schedule. Appointments held is how many of those appointments that you set actually showed up, right? And then out of the ones that actually showed up or that you held when you went to their house, how many did you get to sign an agreement, whether it be a buyer brokerage agreement or a listing agreement? And, different teams track this differently. We on our team track everything combined, but a lot of teams track them separately between buyer appointments and agreements and seller appointments and agreements. Again, whatever works for you. Then it's under contract, right? So how many of the people that you got to sign an agreement with you did you actually get under contract? And how many of those contracts actually closed? Okay, so you should be tracking these. You can set up a very simple Excel sheet and they can start tracking your conversions. We actually on our team use Excel. We have daily tracking sheets where people put in their numbers. And as they put in their numbers, we could see the conversions at the top of the sheet, right? So we'd like to track all of this. It's important to tell you guys because you're probably wondering, well, like, what's an industry standard for conversions? It's important to let you guys know that it varies by agent, market, skill level, and business model. There's no universal industry standards. Each agent has to track and improve their own metrics and make independent business decisions. But again, going back to the point I was making, that's why you track them, because your numbers are going to tell a story. If you're seeing that your conversion is what you would consider low from conversation to appointment set, maybe it's your skill on the phones that you have to work on, or maybe it's who you're talking to, right? If it's appointment set to appointment held, maybe you're setting the appointments too far out, right? Or maybe there's not enough value in the appointment setting conversation that you're creating for that person to actually want to hold this appointment with you. If you're getting the appointment but you're not getting the agreement signed, maybe it's something in your presentation, or you're not pre-qualifying the person well enough before the appointment. If you're not getting them under contract after you're getting the agreement signed, again, the conversions will tell you the story of where your gap could be. And I would also encourage you guys to, consider getting coaches or having peer accountability groups where you guys can look at these kinds of things together and see your numbers together. One thing I will tell you as a standard that we have on our teams is, and our team is 100 conversations a week, 20 conversations a day, right? That's what we do. Yeah, Kyan, I mean, listen, we're in a shifted market, right? So in order for us to be able to win, in order for us to stay relevant, we have to do more than everyone else to, get the same level of results that we had when the market was good. But it also goes back to what I was saying earlier. If our team is having 100 conversations a week, how many more opportunities are they creating? How much better are their skills getting? Right? And so what's possible for you when you just focus on the amount of activities instead of the outcome, right? Focus on massive action. That's what you need. And especially in a market like today's, that is what you need. You have to be like basically willing to outwork others. You unmuted yourself, Kyan?
Yeah, I was gonna say, just to make 2 cents on that comment, is that we get so caught up on our day to day that, oh, sorry about that. We get so caught up
That's
in our
okay.
day to day that we're like, oh, I have to do this, I have to go that. I don't have time for that. But you can easily have a conversation with the person behind you when you're at Publix or when you're buying some food. And it's true. I catch myself all the time talking about, because I'm a tour guide as well, aside from real estate, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
always talking about my tours and my experiences, but I always forget to mention real estate. So now
Mm.
I'm thankful I joined this because you're like poking at us in a good way. So I appreciate you saying this, Rolando.
Listen, man, it's reality, and I appreciate you being vulnerable with it, right? Like, I'll tell you guys, I made this mistake after getting licensed. I told myself, I'm gonna wait until I've at least done a couple sales before I tell my friends I'm a realtor. How many of us have fell into that trap? I did. I fell into that trap. And then when I finally got the courage to start telling people I was a realtor, they were like, "Oh my God, you're a realtor? I wish you would have told me. I just bought a house. Oh, my uncle just finished selling his house. Oh, my sister just bought a house, just sold a house. I wish I would have known." Right? I was like, oh, a lot of these people would have hired me anyway, but I didn't knock on the door. I didn't make the ask, right? And it's like that verse, I think it's in Matthew 6 of the Bible, something about like, seek and ye shall find, knock and it shall be opened unto you. I know I got some Bible warriors in here that know that verse bar for bar. But the point I'm trying to make here is not about religion. It's about going out there and telling people that you are a realtor. Stop being a secret agent. You are limiting yourself. The only one who's putting those limits on yourself by not telling people that you're a realtor is you. So, moving on. Next, this is where you win, guys. Mindset, right? So, these are eight mindset things that you have to keep in mind when you're approaching lead generation. Because I get it, guys. I've been in your shoes as a day one lead generator. And even to this day, 10 years in, knowing my scripts, knowing my objections, I still wake up some days and don't want to make my calls or have a negative mindset about it, right? So I have to keep it sharp. How do I do that? Number one, I remember my big why, right? So I have my vision board right in front of me, right? I think about the people or my future self, right? That I want to do this for, that I'm doing this for. When things get hard, I look at that vision board, right? And I remind myself, okay, like I'm doing this for future me. So future me can enjoy the vacations, a stable marriage, kids, and not have to worry about finances, not have to have my kids go through what I went through growing up. You know, the other thing, set big goals. Shoot for the stars, and I mean, aim for the moon, you'll land among the stars, right? Like, don't be afraid to put down a goal. Put down a goal that makes you nervous, right? Put down numbers that make you nervous, because even if you don't achieve them, if you get even to half of them or 80% of them, you might still be okay, right? But don't set yourself to what I call realistic, because who is to define what's really realistic for you? right? So I'll give you guys a story. Again, when I first started in real estate, I didn't know anything about anything, right? And I just wanted to kind of like get to know the players at my office. So there was this wall where they had the top producers at, and I tried to find the people on that wall who were like, I guess, what I perceived to be like me. So I found a gentleman, his name's John Salt, he's about my age, and I went looking for his office, and I find his office, and I see he's prospecting on the phone, and I say, hey, John, my name's Rolando, I'm a new agent here. Listen, I see you on the top producer wall, bro. Like, you seem to be killing it. What's your goal for how many houses you want to sell this year? And John looks at me with a dead face. He's like 50 and pretty much was like, I gotta go. So I closed the door and I'm like, okay, 50 is the goal. Like if I want to be around these big shots, I'm gonna go for 50. And I sold 21 and I wasn't happy about it. I was like, I didn't even get halfway to my goal. But then when I started telling people I sold 21, they were like, yo, you sold 21 houses? That's a lot, right? And so now my mind thought differently. When I thought 50 was a realistic goal, now 20 was a lot, and I sold 20 my next year. So that tells you guys how powerful your mind is and how sometimes not knowing everything can be an advantage, right? The saying ignorance is bliss, a lot of times that's true, right? Because if we know too much, the smartest people that you know sometimes tend to be the most broke because they know everything about everything and they want to logically explain to you why everything won't work, right? We have those friends that got all the degrees but don't have the success because they constantly overthink things. That cannot be you. You've got to set big goals and you've got to get into action, right? The second thing about that is don't focus on the negatives, focus on the possibilities, right? Too many times because we want to protect ourselves, right? Our brain is primitively wired to be trained to help you survive. It wants to always be considering the worst possible outcomes. That is your default. Now you have to train your brain to constantly focus on the possibilities. What if this actually does happen? What if this does work? What if I go on this listing women and actually do get the listing, right? So like that also comes with manifesting, right? So like a lot of the things that I did early on or still do is I visualize, right? So like I used to visualize myself going to a closing table. I used to visualize myself prospecting on the phones. I used to visualize myself being a freaking ninja on the phones. I used to have affirmations that I would read to myself every morning about being a world-class salesperson, about people wanting to do business with me, right? About getting those big checks. And eventually, guys, it starts happening. It starts happening because I'm training my brain. I'm wiring my brain for the possibilities. If I'm not putting myself into alignment, right? I'm not hoping, I'm not just praying. I'm putting my mind into alignment for the things that I want. And if I'm not doing that, it's hard for those things to align. Okay? Get into action. Guys, stop overthinking. Just get in the water. Go make calls. You messed up your script on your first conversation. Make the next call, right? You got to have short-term memory. You got to have short-term memory. You got to keep it moving. Oh, a deal fell through. Got to have short-term memory. Got to keep it moving. Got to keep it moving, right? Somebody didn't give us the business. Got to have short-term memory. Got to keep it moving. The other thing I'll say about this is do not fall into the busyness trap, like Kyan said earlier, right? A lot of us, we see our big to-do list. We got to go to this class. We got to go do this. And so our brain is dying to justify us not do the uncomfortable stuff. It is dying to justify you not having to make calls today. Oh my God, I get to go to a class from 1 to 2 so I don't have to make calls. And then I have an inspection and then I have to go write this addendum. So I just can't make calls. Not true. And let me prove it to you, right? Because if you make your calls in the mornings, which we're going to get to time blocking and time management and focus, as long as you do your calls in the mornings, you will be consistently able to prospect. Maybe you're not able to have the same amount of conversations every day, but if you put that hard thing that needs quiet time and focus in the mornings, you will be more likely to have the results and the activities done, right? The other thing is celebrate the small wins, guys. Like I tell my agents, like maybe, like a lot of the times I have high achievers on my team. I like to bring people who are high achievers, but high achievers are also highly judgmental of themselves, right? So, like somebody got their first appointment and they'll be like, yeah, but I don't have a closing agent. I'm like, bro, so what? you got an appointment. Like you dreamed about this. This is a step, right? We got to celebrate this. Or, someone just had their first closing. They're like, yeah, but I'm behind on goal for the year. And I'm like, okay, but you just got a closing. Like this is a special moment for you. You're gonna remember this, right? When later on, I remember my first closing. I remember probably my first three closings. Never gonna forget those, right? They're special moments. And I made that mistake myself, guys. I was such like a driver and wanting to just get results and push that I experienced a lot of burnout early on in my years because I wasn't taking that time to step back and be like, I got to give myself a pat on the back. I got to give myself maybe a Saturday off or a Sunday off to just like, remind myself why I do this, not just be constantly trying to kill myself, because I'm not getting the results I want. So celebrate the small wins. It helps your subconscious, kind of feel motivated to keep going on when those days are hard. If you don't celebrate the small wins and you burn out, work doesn't become fun anymore. And then, you might start having mental health issues, which I pray nobody does, but it happens. It happens. So we got to celebrate the small wins. Next thing, think competitively and strategically. This is why I told you guys to track your numbers. This is why I'm telling you guys to have an accountability group. This is also why you need to be focused on surrounding yourself with people who think the same way as you do as a high achiever, right? Like you need to be having conversations with people about growth, about where your next opportunity is, about how to succeed in whatever you're doing, right? If the people around you are just having conversations where they're talking about what's on the news or the Bad Bunny halftime show or what Only in Dade posted yesterday, if those are the only conversations you're having, you're not really influencing your brain to grow, right? You're kind of just focused on things you can't control or just drama or things that are not really influencing your growth, right? So how do you think competitively and strategically? I mean, pretty much you have to track your numbers. You have to have, people that you admire that you want to kind of grow up to be like or, grow into. You have to think strategically, right? So when you're looking at your numbers, how do I improve this, right? Maybe bounce ideas off of another person or an AI, right? But you have to be in that state of thinking competitively and strategically always. The best agents I know are by far the most competitive. They like to win. Any listing competition you want to put them in, any sort of awards that they're going to be able to win for doing something, they're going to want to do it. They're going to want to do it, right? Because they're competitive, they're strategic. Um, so the other thing, maintain standards, guys. Know your standards, right? Know your standards and, be willing to uphold your standards. Like if you're not willing to respect your time blocks when on the times that you're supposed to do what you're supposed to do, again, it's going to be very tough for you to stay in business. And this is why a lot of people might, again, consider, getting into a brokerage where it's more team oriented, where you have accountability or hiring a coach, because maybe some of us need that. Others, parents out there, let me tell you, kids are great accountability partners. Tell your kids, hey guys, I want to plan a trip to Disney in December, but I have to sell 15 houses in order for me to do that. So can you guys hold me accountable? You guys that have kids, tell me how that will go for you, right? I'm gonna bet that every single day they're gonna be like, Marlene, did you sell a house today? Did you sell a house today, mom? Mom, did you sell? How many houses have you sold today, mom? You haven't sold any? Mom, we're not gonna go to Disney World. Like, come on, we got to get this together. So kids are great accountability partners too, but definitely I think that's a great way to do it. The last thing here on mindset is be of service. When I switched my mindset to me making a commission, me making money, my needs getting met, to I'm just calling to help people. I'm calling to be of service. I want to help as many people as possible. I want to try and help this person through this situation, right? This person doesn't know how to get pre-approved. This person doesn't know what it takes to buy a house. This person doesn't know how to sell a property and get top dollar. Like once I started thinking about the other person and trying to help them, things started flowing a lot more naturally, right? That was a mindset shift for me that was very powerful. Last thing here, because we're kind of short on time, is focus and time management, guys. So I said it earlier, time on task over time. All of this about lead generation, guys, is about repetition, right? It's showing up every day and doing the same things consistently over time, right? So I use a schedule. I believe all high performers follow a schedule. I personally use Google Calendar, and I have it set up the same way every single day. Now things have changed a little bit because I'm in a management role, so I'm, sometimes I have to go to meetings in the mornings. But as an agent, this was my schedule up until 12 p.m. and it was fixed. The only way that this was getting changed is, I had a doctor's appointment or I was on a vacation or a buyer or a seller needed to meet with me at this time because it was the only time that they had available. And you better believe if they told me that this was the only time they had available, I would always ask them, "You sure you don't have any time available after 1 or 2?" I was always going to ask because I wanted to protect this time. But 7:30 to 8 o'clock, script practice. 8 to 11, 3 hours, hitting the phones, calling, DM, door knocking, whatever it was I was doing that day, it was 3 hours of it, right? And then for another hour from 11 to 12, it was follow up, right? Who are the leads that I added from the day before, the week before, the month before that I'm prospecting that I need to check in with today and help move them forward? That was my morning. Whatever happened after that was going to happen. Because let me tell you guys, I don't know if you've realized, but the world doesn't really start getting going until around 11, 12 o'clock, right? Like your emails, your phone, everything doesn't really start going until about 11, 12 o'clock. So if you try to tell yourself, oh, I'll do lead generation in the afternoon or in the evenings and I'm going to do the admin stuff in the mornings, don't count on it. It's just hardly ever going to happen. And I'll explain to you why. Because number one, the world is going to be moving. You're going to have problems. You're going to say, oh, no, I have to get this problem resolved. I have to do this. And it's 3 o'clock, so I have to get on this now, right? And then the other thing is energy, right? Lead generation, guys, if you're making calls or if you're door knocking, like you have to have the energy for this stuff. You have to have the energy to remember what objection handler you're going to use, following the script, having good tonality, having good energy, right? Like that stuff is normally depleted for most people around 3, 4, 5 o'clock, especially after you have lunch, which is another thing, guys, right? Nutrition is really important. I don't eat burgers and fries and a Coke for lunch, right? Like I have a light salad because I need to make sure that my energy is sharp for the entire day, right? Like all of these things, my sleep, my meditation, my exercise, my diet, everything has to be locked in and on point for me to perform at a high level. I treat myself and my body just like, well, not with the same budgets, but like just like professional athletes, right? I'm a big sports guy. I see how these guys prepare, right? They have all kinds of trainers, they have all kinds of coaches, they have all kinds of nutritionists, right? Because their bodies need to be good. Just because they're doing physical work and I'm doing mental work doesn't make a difference. My mind still needs to be sharp. And I need to be able to know how to handle problems and I need to be able to take action on the things that take a lot of effort, like making calls, door knocking, or following up on leads, whatever it might be, right? So build your bunker. In that morning time, you got to protect it, right? You can't be, I get a big old jug of water. I fill it up in the morning so I don't have to be going back to the kitchen and having small talk with people. If people are like, oh, you have a minute, I'll be like, hey, after 12, send me a text. Talk to me after, right? If a client calls me before 12, I usually don't pick it up until after 12, right? And I set those expectations with them when we first start working. I say, hey, Karen, just so you know, in the mornings, if you're a buyer, I say, I'm looking for properties for my buyers. I'm prospecting for properties for my buyers. If you're a seller, I say, I'm looking for buyers for your property during this time. So I'm usually not available to take calls. If it's urgent, you can text me. I'll get back to you within 3 to 4 hours. Or if it's not urgent, give me up to 24 hours. Is that okay with you? And I usually don't, answer calls before 12. Karen will say yes. And then if Karen needs to call me before 12, she's going to remember that. And she's going to say, Rolando, I'm so sorry. I know this is not a time that you can usually talk. So you have to train people. You have to teach people how to treat you. But then you also have to have your systems, right? Like your notifications for Instagram have to be off. Your email notifications have to be off. Your email tab has to be closed, right? Like all the things that could create a distraction for you while you're in that time block, you need to block out. I would recommend you guys the book, The One Thing by Gary Keller as well. Very, very good book. It's about habits. It's about time blocking. It's about creating focus. Very good book. I've read that book cover to cover 4 times. Like it is that good. Another really good book I'd recommend you guys is Atomic Habits by James Clear. It's another good book. I think I've read that one 3 times. I know for sure I've read it at least twice. But again, it's books about focus and habits. Like that's all it is at a basic level. And like I was saying earlier, protect your energy, guys, right? Your food, right? Your sleep, how often you exercise, how much water you drink, the things you're listening to, right? Are you listening to podcasts, audiobooks? Are you reading audiobooks? Are you listening to things that are positive and influential? Or are you kind of just letting whatever get into your head or whoever talk to you? right? Who are you taking advice from? Those kind of things. Like protecting your energy comes through many different facets. So it is 2:01. I want to thank you guys for your time. I know that was a little rushed at the end, but I do want to respect everyone's time and thank you all for coming. And I want to open up now for any questions and or takeaways that you may want to share with the rest of the class.
If you are doing cold calls, what would you say is your favorite from the three options that I had mentioned? Would it be FISBOs, expired, or canceled, Mr. Rolando?
Yeah, Kyan. My personal, I think the one where people have the most success is expireds.
Expired?
Expireds is the most rejection heavy form of lead generation. It's the one where people will typically be the nastiest on new expireds. But we have to keep in mind that they are people who have already decided to sell and they're already comfortable with working with a realtor. So all you have to really do now is be able to be the realtor that they hire. And a lot of them, it's just again about following up. It's about who's the realtor who's going to stay in touch with them until they're actually ready again to sell. Um, Another one is for sale by owners. I mean, I think for sale by owners are also great. Again, it's not as rejection intensive because they're not getting bombarded like expireds are most of the time. But they usually want to try it themselves for a little bit before they actually consider hiring a realtor in most cases. So again, it comes down to following up and staying irrelevant until they say, okay, I'm done trying it myself. I'll go for an agent.
And with
Um,
FISBOs, what would you use to find them as far as the back end? The Zillow,
so
like Redfin,
Zillow
Realtor?
is Zillow is a great way to do it. That's free. You can just kind of filter for sale by owners. But if you're able to pay for a service, Vulcan 7 is the best one that I've heard of. We use Mojo for expires and circle prospecting, which I was going to tell you. Like we're a team, right? So we have listings on our team, and our agents can circle prospect our listings, or they do open houses on our listings, and they call around the neighborhood for the open houses, and then they just try to find owners in the area who at one point want to sell, or maybe somebody who wants to buy a second property, or those kinds of deals too. Um, but yeah, I would say expireds and for sale by owners are probably the best.
Nice. And then one
Um,
question that I also wrote: what would you recommend a podcast that you listen to or you've listened to before that's up to date with like the market that you know by head, or can you refer us to one?
with the real estate market in Miami, Kevin, I think the Miami Realtors or YPN podcast
They have
has
up to date
market.
podcasts.
I don't know if the YPN one necessarily has market stats.
Oh,
Kevin, you can help.
we release market stacks every month.
Every month.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, but just because
Really
when I eat and
those-
when I'm cooking, I always like hear podcasts like mostly faith based, but there's like stuff that's like ongoing in the market and something I could listen to consecutively.
Yeah.
That would be an awesome reference because I haven't found one, and the ones I do find on YouTube are like they always lead to something else. If you get
So
my drift.
yeah. As far as market data, I don't
Mm-hmm.
have one off the top of my head. But as far as
Yeah.
real estate and like being a high level agent and mindset,
Mm-hmm.
there's a few. One is the One Thing podcast. So I got really obsessed with the One Thing and like everything that book taught. So the podcast was really good because again, it gave me live examples of people who implemented the things that the book taught. The Millionaire Real Estate Agent podcast with Gary
Yeah.
Keller. Those are really,
Yeah.
really good. Um, the other one is the Brian Buffini podcast. Brian, Brian, last name Buffini is another one. Again, really good mindset. He does bring in real estate experts, but they do more national real estate data.
Nice.
Um,
Okay.
so, but yeah, I mean, those three podcasts have been really good. I've at times listened to things like Diary of a CEO. I think his podcasts are really good. So, stuff like that. Let me see here. There's some
Thank you,
questions.
sir. Appreciate you, Mr. Rondo.
You're very
Thank you.
welcome, Kyan. Okay, let me see here.
You
Okay,
said
so
diary of a what? Sorry, I was writing it down.
Diary of a CEO.
Diary of a CEO. Got it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Shannon.
Do you have us a script or suggestions for door knocking? Yeah, so Karen, I mean, my script is pretty simple when I door knock. I usually it's basically the same conversation as circle prospecting. Like it's either I just sold the property in the area, I just listed a property in the area, I'm doing an open house for a property in the area, or I have a buyer looking in your area. The just listed, just sold one is pretty much the same. It's, knock knock. I take a step back. I greet them with a smile and I say, hi. Don't mean to take much of your time. My name's Rolando. I'm a local realtor. The reason I'm here is because we just listed a property. We just sold a property at your right here in your neighborhood. I wanted to give you a flyer. We still have people looking in the area, or I have, buyers interested in the area. Who do you know in the area that may be considering selling? Right? Or I start with, who do you know that might be, if I just listed the property, if I just listed the property, I say, who do you know that might be interested in buying? And if they say, whatever they say, then I say, okay, great. If I find a buyer who wants to buy in the area and maybe they're interested in my listing, who do you know that might be considering selling? Right? And I just have a quick conversation with them about that. And then I say, okay, great. Well, listen, have you had any thoughts about real estate or need anything in the future? Would you like to get updated about the market? And if they say yes, I say, okay, great. And I always bring a clipboard. I don't bring my phone or give them my business card. I bring a clipboard and I look down at my clipboard and I say, okay, great. What's your name? And what's your phone number? And I don't look back up at them until they give it to me. Right? Or they tell me, oh, I'm not going to give it to you. But that's an assumptive close. Like just by me looking down at the clipboard and not looking back up, most of the time they're going to give it to you. If I'm just calling or if I'm door knocking because I have a buyer in the area, it's pretty much kind of the same conversation. Hey, I have a buyer in the area. They've looked at everything that's on the market. Unfortunately, they haven't seen anything that they've liked, but they really want to move into this neighborhood. Who do you know that might be thinking about selling? Right? So you don't even have to have a listing. Maybe if you just want to hit doors, like that's a pitch right there. Right? And the open house one is kind of the same. Hey, I just listed an open house in the area. It's going to be this Saturday from 1 to 3. Come on by. By the way, who do you know that might want to be that might be interested in being your neighbor? Okay, or who do you know that maybe want to sell after I get this property sold? So it's just very simple like that. And again, the idea is I want to either get their information or referrals information, but ideally theirs, because if they're giving me a referral anyway, I kind of want to keep in touch with this person. Maybe they know other people. So yeah. Door knocking, again, it goes back to your energy, guys, with calls or with door knocking or events. Like just the same way I'm showing up to you guys, right? Like energetic, high level, right? Excited for the opportunity. Maybe you don't need to be so intense in every situation, but like people have to feel like you enjoy what you're doing. And like that takes being proactive about it. That takes the right diet. It takes the right mindset. It takes the right affirmations. It takes, taking care of your body. Energy is very, very important in these conversations. It's actually more than 80% is more so your body language and your tonality than what you're actually saying. So that's why it's very important to keep your energy. My brother tells me that every day. Did you sell a house today? Ha! I love that, Ileana. You got a good accountability partner. Karen Trevino says, give yourself grace. Yes, absolutely. Only mentioning the word Disney sets up the pace. Yes, Miguelina, for sure. All right, guys. Well, I think I've answered all the questions. I don't know if anyone else has anything else. If not, thank you for your time. You can follow me on Instagram if you want to keep up. My phone number and email are also there. Appreciate you guys' time and wish you the absolute best. Feel free to contact me if you have any more questions.
Thank you,
Great class,
Rolando.
Mr. Rolando.
Much.
Thank you, guys.
Great class. Great class.
Thank
God
you.
bless you guys.
Thank you. God bless you too.
Amen.
All right.
I'm a YPN leader. Of course I'm going to be on my laptop.
I'm a YPN leader. Of course I have a full purse.
I'm a YPN leader. Of course I'm eating before I leave.
I'm a YPN leader. Of course I'm sneaking out for shopping.
We're YPN leaders.
Of course we're going to be creating content.
I'm a YPN leader. Of course I'm signing up for classes.
I'm a YPN leader. Of course I'm Cafecito obsessed.
I'm a YPN leader. Of course I'm going to crash the next happy hour.
If I find my way home, yeah. Wouldn't it be crazy? Don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy? Don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy? Don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy? And don't you still amaze me? Wouldn't it be crazy? And don't you still amaze me?